Growing up in the 1960s, 50 things you'll never forget. Some things were an indispensable part of life in the 1960s, but today they have become a mystery to the younger generation. Just imagine a world without smartphones, without the internet, without remote controls, where every joy and habit was very different. Today, we will take you on a journey to discover unique experiences that only those who lived in this decade truly understand. Ready? These memories will surely make you both surprised and nostalgic. Winding your watch daily. Few modern devices offer the special feeling that this watch did. Imagine waking up every morning, picking up your wristwatch and winding it. This was a daily ritual for most people wearing watches in the 1960s because battery-powered watches were still quite new and not widely popular. The gentle click-clack sound of the winding mechanism was the sound signaling the start of a new day. In an era of simple technology, it was a physical interaction with a personal item, far different from just looking at a phone screen or smartwatch today. Analog clock reading skills were essential. Along with winding, the ability to read an analog clock was absolutely essential. Wall clocks and wristwatches usually only displayed hands and markings or Roman numerals. There were no easy-to-read digital displays or convenient digital notifications. Understanding the position of the hour and minute hands, how they moved, and what time they indicated was a basic skill every child had to learn early on. Today, you might be surprised to learn that there's an entire generation of children who can't read an analog clock because they've never needed to. The proliferation of digital devices has led to the loss of a skill that was once fundamental to daily life. Pregnant women still smoked and drank alcohol. Looking back at the 1960s, one thing that might astonish today's generation is the lifestyle of pregnant women. While we are now very cautious during pregnancy, abstaining from caffeine and deli meats, taking full vitamin supplements, and avoiding anything that could harm the baby, mothers in the 60s didn't change many of their habits after becoming pregnant. If a woman smoked before pregnancy, she was likely to continue smoking. Similarly, if she drank alcohol, that habit often persisted. Of course, these mothers had no intention of harming their children, because the dangers of these habits were not fully understood at the time. It's interesting to look back at photo albums and see images of pregnant mothers with a cigarette in hand as a normal part of life back then. Cigarettes were even heavily advertised in magazines with glamorous actors and catchy slogans forming a part of the social culture. Walking to school alone and carrying books by hand. In the 1960s, the most common way to get to school every morning was to walk. There was no concept of school buses or long lines waiting for parents to drop off and pick up children, as there is today. Even at just 6 years old, children were sent to school alone and taught how to find their way. Sometimes they might go with siblings or a neighborhood child, following the same route, but not always. Parents had no hesitation in preparing lunch and letting their children go to school by themselves. Furthermore, backpacks didn't become common until the 1970s. So children had to carry their textbooks, notebooks and papers by hand, or tucked under their arms when walking to school. It was a significant burden to juggle everything in sweaty hands, without the luxury of a bag that could be slung over the shoulder. The image of independent children making their own way to school was very familiar in this era. Buying candy or drinks at the store with loose change. One of the best things about walking home from school was being able to stop by a small store to buy candy. Back then, with just a little loose change, you could buy a big bag of candy. You could linger, order an ice cream soda, a malt, or an egg cream, and sit leaning against the counter enjoying it like a real adult. The feeling of sitting at a classic bar where people gathered, chatted, and enjoyed refreshments, with the clinking of glasses and music from the jukebox, was an unforgettable part of childhood. Simple but meaningful moments that any child would be excited about. Have you ever experienced this? Please share in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Learning to earn, count, and spend real money early on. From a very young age, children learned how to earn money, count money, and spend real money. Going to the store alone, handing over loose change, and receiving change back was not just a simple transaction, but also a practical lesson about the value of money and financial management. This is very different from today's younger generation, who often tend to think that plastic cards, credit cards, are the only way to pay for everything. The skill of using cash, feeling the weight of coins in your hand, and carefully calculating to buy your favorite item was an important part of growing up for children in the 1960s. High-risk toys were accepted. Science experiment kits that could emit toxic fumes to plastic melting ovens like the Thingmaker. Children learned early on that life had dangers and that they needed to be careful when using certain toys. BB guns, for example, were considered a common toy, and almost every child wanted one. Unlike today, when toys with choking hazards are recalled from shelves, children of the 60s were built differently. They weren't afraid of burns, scratches, or scars. In fact, these were even seen as badges of honor. Other toys were also challenging and sometimes dangerous in their own ways. Rock'em Sock'em Robots was a classic toy that children across the country loved, trying to make the robots' heads pop off. Major Matt Mason, a Mattel action figure, could bend, but its wire frame often broke at the knees or elbows over time. Wham-O Super Balls was another unique toy that children loved to bounce as high as possible, followed by a race to chase them. The Creepy Crawler's rubber insect maker was also a fun activity, where you poured liquid into molds and baked them in a small oven at 350 degrees to create your own rubber creatures. Burns, scratches, and scars were considered badges of honor. As mentioned, children of the 1960s were raised differently. They didn't mind small burns, scratches, or scars on their bodies. On the contrary, these marks were considered badges of honor. They were proof of adventures, daring games, and lessons learned from real life. A scar on the knee might be a memory of falling off a bicycle, while a small burn could come from playing with dangerous toys. It was a life attitude that today's generation might find hard to understand, as safety and child protection are paramount. Having to wait for rotating films at local movie theaters. The movie-watching experience in the 1960s was very different from today. There was no instant access to popular films, and we had to wait patiently. That's because downtown movie theaters usually only had 1 or 2 screens. Movies would rotate weekly or bi-weekly. For most of us, there were no multiplexes to show every new release. Large shopping malls were also just beginning to emerge. This created a special sense of anticipation and excitement when a new movie came out, as it was the only chance to see it for a certain period. This experience is completely different from instantly accessing any movie on online platforms today. Banana seat bikes. The 60s marked the advent of a childhood icon, the banana seat bike. With its long, curved seat and colorful design, these bikes made you feel like you were cruising in style. The most popular was the Schwinn Stingray, with high handlebars that looked like a chopper motorcycle, instantly making it the coolest bike on the street. Every kid wanted this bike on their wish list. Whether you were showing off your new bike or gathering with friends to race around the neighborhood, these bicycles were an important part of childhood. They were designed for comfort with their special, distinctive seat, and often vibrant colors made them a true symbol of the 60s. Among the things we've just mentioned, what do you remember most about your 60s childhood? Or what surprised you the most? Please leave a comment below. The popularity of Silly Putty. Do you still remember the joy of peeling open the red egg containing Silly Putty? You could bounce it, stretch it, and most fascinatingly, use it on newspaper to create an exact copy of your favorite comic strip. That moment was truly priceless. Silly Putty is still sold today, but very few families still keep printed newspapers at home, and children today certainly no longer read comic strips in newspapers. Therefore, the popularity of Silly Putty is no longer what it once was, when it was a symbol of creativity and entertainment tied to newspaper reading culture. The decline of printed newspapers in many households has changed how children interact with these simple toys. TV dinner was a breakthrough. With television programming still quite new in the 1960s, the idea of watching TV while eating dinner was a breakthrough by the Swanson Company. The first TV dinner was packaged in a compartmentalized foil tray that you could heat in the oven. They quickly became a staple in family freezers across the country. Their novelty made Swanson TV dinners extremely popular, and other companies also began offering their own versions. This idea was particularly favored by working mothers and quickly became a staple of middle-class American families. The compartmentalized tray even had a separate section for dessert, often a fruit cobbler or brownie, which was usually scalding hot compared to the main dish. Jell-O was a complete and surprising meal. Speaking of food, the 60s brought some dishes that might make many young people today cringe. Jell-O is just a dessert today, but back then, it could be an entire meal. Our mothers experimented with putting everything into Jell-O, and truly, everything. If you find a cookbook from the 1960s, you can be sure it will have a recipe for molded gelatin containing ham, vegetables, or fish. Jell-O even introduced savory flavors like celery, mixed vegetables, and Italian salad. Imagine a child sitting in front of a wobbly gelatin plate with hidden pieces of meat inside. If you had a mother who made you finish your dinner before leaving the table, you might have been sitting there for quite a while if the meal included this special Jell-O dish. Western movies were everything to a boy. If you grew up in the 1960s, Western movies were everything to a boy. John Wayne was the star in movies. Shows like Gunsmoke and Bonanza were what you watched on TV. Bonanza was also the first Western to be broadcast in color, so it was exciting to find someone in the neighborhood who had a color TV to watch it. If you weren't watching Bonanza, you'd be outdoors with your cowboy hat or coonskin hat and a cap gun strapped to your side. I'm not sure when I last saw a child playing outside with a cap gun, but in the 1960s, all of us did. These toy guns made a pop sound and even produced smoke when fired, adding realism to any outdoor shootout. First job with a salary of $1 to $1.50 per hour. Getting your first job in the 1960s meant you were paid a pretty substantial wage from $1 to $1.50 per hour. This was still a big achievement and meant you could earn a significant amount of pocket money, more than the loose change collected from returning cans and bottles. For teenagers at that time, a minimum wage job was not just about earning money, but also taught them how to be a good employee. That started with wearing a clean and ironed uniform, being on time, and working hard. The last time I went to McDonald's, the sign listed a starting salary of $15 per hour, but the employees were in casual clothes and I had to wait 20 minutes to get the wrong order. How much things have changed. Pogo sticks hop rod? In the 60s, pogo sticks were everywhere, especially the hop rod, advertised as the first powered pogo stick. Yes, a newly designed gasoline-powered pogo stick. Children spent hours trying to balance and bounce on the sidewalk, swaying until they found their rhythm or fell down with laughter. It wasn't as easy as it looked. With just a metal frame, a spring, and a few footrests, it took real skill to keep going. The click-clack of the spring, the fleeting feeling of weightlessness, that was pure magic. And if you could bounce all the way home without stopping, that was something to brag about. A scraped knee here and there was just part of the experience. No one worried too much about it back then. Ant farms. Ant farms were a popular way for children to get close to nature. You would sit for hours watching the ants build tunnels, carry food, and work together like a small army. Kids were incredibly excited to observe them and watch daily to see the ant colony grow. You would tap on the glass to try to make them move or wonder how they knew their way. It was one of those simple yet captivating ways to learn about life, teamwork, and patience. And honestly, having a small ant colony living right in your room was pretty cool. Fizzies, carbonated drink tablets. Fizzies were the 60s version of instant fun. These small tablets could turn a glass of water into a carbonated, bubbly drink in seconds. You just dropped a tablet into a glass of water, watched it fizz, and then enjoyed a sweet, fizzy drink without needing to open a soda can. It wasn't just about the flavor, but the whole process that made it exciting. With so many flavors to choose from, Fizzies became a favorite way to cool off in the summer or make any occasion a little more special. For many kids, it was like making their own soda right in their kitchen. Shared party line telephones with neighbors. Before private phone lines existed, having a phone line was a big deal. Many families shared lines with neighbors, which meant you could pick up the phone and accidentally overhear someone else's conversation, whether you wanted to or not. And honestly, sometimes we had a little fun with that. But once you got your own private line, it was truly a game changer. No more waiting for others to finish talking or worrying about interruptions. The phone became your private space, perfect for chatting with friends. Collecting green and blue chip stamps. In those days, shopping came with a special reward. Green and blue chip stamps were given when you spent a certain amount at the store, We would collect them in small booklets, and when we had enough, we could redeem them for all sorts of items, from kitchenware to toys. It was like a little treasure hunt. Every trip to the store brought us closer to a new item, and we loved flipping through the catalogs to pick out what we would get. For many families, those stamps were a fun little bonus every time we shopped. Metal can openers, church keys. Opening a soda can meant using a metal can opener. These openers had a sharp pointed end on one side and a flat edge on the other, about 4 to 5 inches long. They were often given away by soda and beer companies with their logos etched into the metal. Back then, it wasn't as simple as pulling a pop-top tab. You had to twist the opener into the can and pry it open. It might take a little effort, but the first sip after putting in the work tasted even sweeter. This was a small, everyday life skill that today's generation doesn't need to know. Smoking was common everywhere, and for everyone. In the 60s, smoking was as common as drinking coffee. You could light up almost anywhere, on planes and restaurants and even in hospitals. It wasn't just about cigarettes, it was a part of the culture. Advertisements with glamorous actors and catchy slogans flooded magazines, and cigarette brands almost became part of a person's identity. Smoking was so prevalent that even pregnant women were regularly seen lighting up, despite the health risks we know today. Whether you were relaxing with friends or taking a break at work, cigarettes were everywhere, and for many, it seemed they always would be. Huge ashtrays filled with cigarette butts were a familiar sight in every room of every home. The console TV was the center of the living room. The television was the center of every living room, and in the 60s, it wasn't just any TV, it was a console TV. These bulky TVs with wooden frames often took up an entire wall and were designed as stylish furniture as well as technology. Sound came from large built-in speakers, and you had to adjust the rabbit ears to get the best picture. There was no remote control, so you were the remote, having to get up to change channels or adjust the volume. But even with those extra efforts, it was a magical time to watch TV, with the whole family gathering together to watch the latest episode of their favorite show. Do you remember the first color TV show you ever watched? The Jetsons on ABC? Although it only lasted 24 episodes, it made children wonder what the future would be like. Going to the drive-in theater. Nothing captures the essence of a night out quite like a trip to the drive-in theater. You would drive up to a giant outdoor screen, park, and tune your car radio to hear the movie. It wasn't just about the film, but the whole experience. Families would load up their cars with blankets and snacks, while groups of friends or couples enjoyed the chance to relax in the back seat. And if you were lucky, you'd get to watch 2 movies in a row, extending the fun under the stars. The drive-in wasn't just a movie, it was an event, a place where the magic of cinema came alive in the open air. What a great way to combine entertainment with the private space of the family car. Soda fountains. Soda fountains were wonderful places to get a cool drink and have fun moments. These classic counters were always lively, serving everything from cold sodas to thick milkshakes. People would gather with friends, chat, and enjoy a refreshing treat on a hot afternoon. The soda jerk behind the counter would skillfully and quickly mix your favorite drink, and there was something special about the atmosphere there. The clinking of glasses, the hum of conversations, and classic tunes from the jukebox. It was a place where life's simple pleasures were shared, and every visit felt like a small celebration. World Book Encyclopedia Set. Before Google existed, the World Book Encyclopedia Set was our main source of knowledge to explore the world. As children, we loved flipping through the colorful pages, whether for school assignments or simply to look up something that sparked our curiosity. These books were filled with fascinating facts about everything, from outer space to ancient history. We would gather around, eagerly searching for answers or sharing an interesting piece of information we found. For many families, owning a complete encyclopedia set was a big deal, like having the whole world at your fingertips. Paper maps were essential travel companions. Before the era of GPS, if you wanted to go somewhere, you had to rely on these trustworthy paper maps to guide you. Whether it was a weekend road trip or a cross-country adventure, spreading out the map and planning the route was part of the fun. We would spread them out on the car hood or the kitchen table, tracing our journey with our fingers and marking towns along the way. There was no zoom function or automatic rerouting, just a large, detailed map showing the world one road at a time. I still keep a few maps in my car's glove compartment, and with them, I never have to worry about losing signal or having no internet. The national anthem playing when TV stations signed off. In the 60s, the national anthem was played when television stations signed off for the night. After hours of broadcasting, the screen would slowly fade to black, and the national anthem would echo through the room. It was a solemn moment marking the end of the day. Everyone would stop what they were doing, perhaps to reflect for a moment, as the image of the stars and stripes, the American flag, appeared on screen. For many, it was a familiar routine, bringing a sense of comfort before static took over the airwaves until morning. Photo slides and slide projectors. Photo slides and slide projectors were the best way to revisit and share special moments. After a vacation or a family gathering, the living room would be filled with excitement as the projector clicked, one slide after another, bringing your memories to the wall. It wasn't just about looking at pictures, but about the whole family gathering, turning off the lights and reminiscing. Sure, sometimes you had to endure a long, drawn-out slideshow, but there was something magical about seeing those moments unfold before your eyes, one slide at a time. It was a family ritual, a way to connect with the past and share joy with loved ones. The magical feeling of the 1969 moon landing. The moon landing in 1969 was one of those moments you'll never forget. That feeling of extreme exhilaration when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, and we all thought, wow, we're actually doing this. It was as if the impossible had become reality. Even if you couldn't understand every detail, you still knew something big was happening. That small step for one man seemed like a giant leap for all mankind. We all wanted to grow up and become astronauts. We watched all the rocket launches, landings, and returns on our school TVs. The dream of becoming an astronaut was common, fostering an interest in science and exploration. Zebra stripe gum. If you were a kid in the 60s, zebra stripe gum was a must-have. With its colorful striped wrapper, it stood out from all other gums. The flavor didn't last long, but that didn't stop us. We'd chew a piece, blow bubbles, and enjoy every bit of it while the flavor lasted. It wasn't about the long-lasting flavor, but about the joy. Sharing a piece with friends and the bold, eye-catching wrapper made it unique. A&W drive-up restaurants. A&W drive-up restaurants were truly unique. You'd park your car, and in a moment, a car hop would roller skate to your vehicle, bringing your meal on a tray, often a root beer float or a burger. The roller skates just made everything more fun. It wasn't just about ordering a meal, but the whole experience, from watching the car hops glide around to enjoying the food with friends or family. Playing outside all day in the summer. The 60s was a time of typical childhood moments, like playing outside all day during summer. There were no smartphones, no video games, or internet to keep children indoors. Summer was a time for exploration, adventure, and creativity. Children would go out early in the morning and return when the streetlights came on, with dirty feet and muddy clothes. Games like baseball, tag, or simply wandering and exploring the neighborhood shaped the childhood of a generation. Backyards, parks, and streets became vast playgrounds where imagination soared. Family road trips in station wagons without seatbelts. The 60s saw family road trips in station wagons become an icon. Back then, there were no seatbelt laws, so you could sprawl out in the back seat to color, read, or just relax during long drives. This created a sense of freedom and space that children today cannot imagine in a fully safety-equipped car. Station wagons were the common car for every middle-class family. It was part of the family adventure, with the whole family piling into the car to go to the drive-in theater or for summer travel. The feeling of lying on your back looking up at the car ceiling or squeezing in with siblings on long trips is an unforgettable memory. Tang, the must-have astronaut drink. Do you remember drinking Tang? The orange powder was poured into water, where it magically turned into a super sweet neon orange drink. It might not sound very appealing, but when astronaut John Glenn drank Tang during his historic first orbit of the Earth in 1962, every child knew they had to drink it. With Tang being the astronaut's drink, it quickly became a must-have beverage in every home. The power of advertising and its association with space transformed a simple powder into a symbol of pioneering and the dream of exploration. space food sticks. If Tang was the astronauts' drink, then space food sticks were their food. These were a popular lunch item with a chewy texture and a slightly peanut butter-like taste. They were often found in children's lunchboxes, bringing a little taste of space into everyday meals. Like Tang, these foods represented children's fascination with space and the achievements of the space program. Easy Bake Oven Toy. For those who couldn't wait to grow up and be responsible for cooking their own meals, there was the Easy Bake Oven. Kenner released this iconic toy in 1963, which came with recipes for baking cookies, cakes, and other treats themselves. This toy oven was not just a toy, but also a tool that helped children learn basic cooking and baking skills, stimulating creativity and independence. Being able to freely and safely explore the culinary world right in their own kitchen made this item a legendary object that everyone knew. The debut of the Beatles and Beatlemania. If you were a kid in 1964 and your parents owned a TV, you surely witnessed the Beatles' American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show. Their appearance created a wild craze, and this reaction became known as Beatlemania. Their mop-top haircuts inspired children to get similar haircuts or buy Beatles-like wigs. Their ankle-high boots also became fashionable, followed by collarless jackets, inspiring many to wear them. The Beatles were a cultural phenomenon that changed fashion, music, and even the attitudes of a generation. American Bandstand and trendy dances. Hosted by Dick Clark, American Bandstand was a must-watch TV show for every child growing up in the 1960s. The show not only helped us discover new artists like Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, Sonny and Cher, and Tina Turner, but also taught us trendy dances like the locomotion, the Watusi, and the mashed potato. American Bandstand was a window into the world of music and youth culture, where dances spread and new trends were formed. You could learn to express yourself through music and movement, becoming part of a growing cultural movement. Bomb shelters and duck and cover drills. Bomb shelters, along with duck and cover drills, sitting down and shielding oneself, were quite common in the early 60s. This was due to the nuclear threat from the Soviet Union. President Kennedy even suggested building shelters in case of a nuclear exchange. Children would be taught how to react in case of a nuclear attack, seeking shelter under school desks or other sturdy objects. Yeah, like, how many of these do you recognize? Is there anything we missed that you'd like to add? Thank you for joining us on this fascinating trip back in time. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next videos, and don't hesitate to share your stories and memories of the 60s in the comments below. See you on our next nostalgic journey next.